The hand we're going to show you today features Neil Farrell, a creative, some may say maniacal player playing in the EPT against a guy who just doesn't know what's about to hit him.
Yep, notable for the red hair, also known as a ginger. Yeah, that's right, I said it, it's out there. Yeah, they're in the EPT, and one thing that's really important for this is that they're both really deep. Neil Farrell and also Rens Feenstra. Both have over 100 blinds, and they're relatively deep in EPT 10 Barcelona. They're on day 4, we think, the beginning of day 4. So there's a lot to play for here, and it's one of the reasons why it's possible to pull off such a monster bluff that we might just see.
We might just see it. This hand was suggested to us on Twitter by Chris Riggins and Neil Vincent. If you have a suggestion for the breakdown, tweet it at us and include a YouTube link, or we will chase you down.
We will do that.
Yeah.
We have private investigators always working for us.
We get angry.
Also, this hand was voted on and chosen by our patrons on Patreon. Bam, it's right there. Click that link. You can learn all about cool rewards you can get for supporting the poker guys. It's pretty sweet and easy to do.
We're going to break this hand down as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
Back at the feature table, Neil Farrell has 8-9 suited under the gun +2. He raises to 13,000. 5-7 off for Christoph de Mulder. He folds. Kimmo Kirko is out. Rens Feenstra has just arrived at the feature table, and he's got ace-king on the button.
This might be a 3-bet.
This is only Feenstra's second cash on the EPT. His first came in this event last year, when he finished 140th. He does re-raise to 31k. Action folded back around to Farrell.
I think 9-8 suited is going to be around the very bottom of most people's calling ranges here, especially since Feenstra's new to the table and Neil may not know how he plays just yet.
Farrell calls. The flop is King 8. Trips for Feenstra.
This is a very bad flop for Neil. Very, very bad.
He has paired his 8. He checks to the razor. Feenstra continues for 23,000.
Farrell's going to have to call 1 bet, possibly 2.
He calls the 23k. 125,000 in the middle.
If Neil improves, he's going to be in big, big trouble.
It's a third diamond on the turn, the queen of diamonds.
You'd think this diamond might kill some of the action, but in a 3-bet heads-up pot, you can't just immediately assume your opponent has a flush.
Also, Feenstra does have the ace of diamonds as insurance. He bets 68,000.
This is a great card for Neil to fold on simply because of board texture. Doesn't look like he's folding.
He decides to turn his hand into a bluff and raise to 169,000.
And I think this is only going to get other bluffs to fold, which will win him the pot sometimes, but I don't see any actual hands folding here.
Sure enough, Feenstra with his trip kings will call.
As Hartigan says here, Feenstra is obligated to call this check raise, but it's super uncomfortable and it is not a position that he had to be in.
Absolutely not. While the queen of diamonds seems like a good thing for him, he's got the nut flush draw, he's got trip kings with the big kicker, it's an awesome spot.
Exciting stuff.
You love it, but what are you really supposed to get called by except other trip kings? I don't know what else we're betting and hoping to get called by that's a worse hand. So why are we really betting here?
Right, if this wasn't Neil Farrell, he would just fold his 8-9 and we would not get any value from that hand. Same with 9s, 10s, jacks. All of those hands can't really continue on this card specifically.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to get any value, whereas if we check back, we can sometimes bluff catch the river or get more value on the river, which seems better. So betting seems like a mistake. And another reason it's a mistake is because we're against crazy, crazy, crazy Neil Farrell, and something like this might happen.
I mean, it's okay if your plan is for this can happen sometimes, so you're just going to call down. People sometimes do this against like Johnny Lawton.
Right.
I'm going to let him go crazy. I'm going to hang on and hope it works out. But that has to actually be part of the plan. Otherwise, you just screw yourself over.
So what is Neil doing here? Because this looks insane, right? He's supposed to just fold and move on to the next hand. He's super deep. It's okay. Move on, Neil. You're good.
Right.
But no.
The question is, first of all, from Neil's point of view, well, what is Feenstra really betting? Like, he's probably not betting ace-queen. He's probably not betting 10s or jacks. He could be betting the lone ace of diamonds, but what ace of diamonds does he have there? Is he 3-betting with ace-jack? I don't think so. Not ace-jack suited and probably not ace-jack off. He's probably just calling with those hands. And all worse aces as well. So now you can't move him off the lone ace of diamonds because he doesn't have the lone ace of diamonds. But that does mean that you can have the nut flush because this guy can't have a flush.
Right. It doesn't make any sense really for Feenstra to be 3-betting a hand like ace 10 or ace jack of diamonds. And if he's not 3-betting those against Neil Farrell when Neil opens an early position, implying great strength, which is why he wouldn't be doing it, Feenstra I'm talking about here, then how could he possibly have a flush? Farrell knows that Feenstra has no flushes, and that makes it a lot easier for him to start bluffing here.
Right. And to be clear, it's not just the early position, it's also that they're both super deep. They're two of the biggest stacks in the room. There's no reason to go crazy at each other with a hand as weak as ace jack or ace 10 when you can flat with those hands and figure it out in position. It's great against a player like Neil Farrell.
So Farrell is now representing just extreme strength
Hulk
here.
level strength.
He's representing a flush and better, and usually only the nut flush if he doesn't have a full house. So Farrell's sitting there just thinking, I hope Feenstra doesn't have the super nuts, meaning kings or queens basically, because Feenstra really doesn't have eights pre-flop or now that we have an eight as Neil Farrell, so we're not too worried about that. So he's got quads or queens full. Otherwise, this is probably going to end up working by the river as long as he doesn't hold on.
Right. Eights are usually going to just call pre-flop, and there's only one combo of them.
We've got a huge pot now. The better part of $500,000.
Neil's going to have to bet huge on the river if he wants his bluff to work.
The inconsequential 5 of hearts. Looks like Farrell is betting.
And boom goes the dynamite.
A huge bluff, 326,000.
Sick bluff. I guess you could say the Scotsman has a brave heart.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I do not know how often this bluff's going to work. Especially against ace-king.
Feenstra looks kind of tortured. And he's folding!
Wow.
Farrell's audacious bluff gets through.
Yes, this is quite the audacious bluff, but let's look at why and if it's actually good. Grant, break it down.
Well, in simple terms, this looks pretty spewy.
Yeah.
Neil Farrell is a crazy Irishman, and he is doing crazy things, is what it looks like. And the thing that makes it really tough to get through is that he's representing a very narrow range.
Very narrow range indeed. At this point on the river, he's saying, I have nut flushes and full houses. That's what he was saying on the turn also. The difference is he check raised and got called. So, wow. I mean, Feenstra is repping a super strong range himself now, which indeed he has. So it's just kind of hopeful, ambitious, optimistic maybe, to actually get this bluff through.
We think Neil must have seen something in Feenstra on the turn when Feenstra called, saying, I'm not super comfortable with this call, because a lot of good players will just call with a super nut type hand in Feenstra's position, and then this bluff, of course, would never work. So Farrell must have some inclination that Feenstra is not 100% comfortable with his hand, or else he's kind of doing this flying blind with no real information.
That said, there's only a few hands you really have to worry about, right? Kings and queens, obviously, we're never going to fold out.
Right.
But a hand as strong as ace-king, which is really the next hand down for Feenstra, since, as we said on the turn, he can't have flushes, well, that ended up being a fold. And the question is it a good fold?
I think it is a good fold.
Tell us why. We demand to know.
A big reason this is a good fold is because Feenstra holds the ace of diamonds. Usually, if Neil is bluffing here, he's going to have the ace of diamonds as a blocker, making sure his opponent doesn't have the nut flush. Feenstra now knows that Neil does not have that. So that's a huge deal. So what can Neil possibly be bluffing with here? It's not like he played King 10 like this and is turning King 10 into a bluff.
Right.
Ever. It's not like he's turning 8-9 into a bluff, right? Well, I guess it is.
Turns out, since he has 8-9, I guess he could have pocket fives and be turning it into value too. But it seems hard to imagine that Neil's going to have a hand like 8-9 or pocket sixes or anything that we can really beat here. So this probably is a good fold. Not sure if this is such a good bet on the river for Neil. Although the one thing it does is it puts Feenstra to such a tough decision. It's 350,000. First of all, it's a really big bet compared to the size of the pot. And second of all, it would take Feenstra down if he calls and loses from a top 5 or 10 stack down to like an average stack. And that's a really tough thing to have to call off when you have, I know it's strong, but a hand as weak as trip kings when there's flushes and full houses out there.
I mean, this is straight bully poker from Farrell. To be fair, he is polarized to having better or far, far worse than Feenstra.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that he would be doing this with a hand like pocket eights for a full house or a hand like king queen. There's just not that many hands like those The thing is, from Feenstra's perspective, there seems to be 0 bluffs that make sense, which makes it really kind of an easy fold almost.
When you have that ace of diamonds sitting there and you can't have the bluff flush draw on the river, now it just looks like pocket eights all day, and I think it's probably is a good fold. It just sucks.
Neil's kind of flying blind and is a bit of a maniac, but it works for him. Obviously, he's a very successful player. The thing that he's doing is he's not playing traditional range poker that a lot of top players will. He's playing crazy mess with the dials poker, and that's going to work like this sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, on the turn, it was more like, well, I'm the only one who can have a flush. But on the river, it's, please fold, I hope this works.
Please don't have either queens full or quad kings.
Yeah.
And then please fold the king if you have a king.
Right, and if you have one of the big hands that you call with, please fold that too when I bet. Don't hero me, please.
Right, well, it worked out.
If you want to see our reaction to our favorite comments on this video, click right here and you're going to see our new video about that.
Right. If you guys want to see another huge EPT bluff, check out the coronation of Jason Mercier by clicking over there.
Yep, for sure. That is a cool hand, and it's the thing that made Jason Mercier who he is today, I'm going to say.
His coronation, some might say.
One might indeed say the word and use the word coronation. That would be great.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.